So good day everyone. So today we will going to discuss the microbial disease of nervous system. So our nervous system is highly integrated system that is important for us to be knowledgeable about the various causes and diseases that can be found in our nervous system. So this topic will be going to discuss by Hideromi Kakinuma, yours truly, Arian Desano, and Karin Catalonia. So for our objectives, to discuss the importance and brief background of the structure and function of the nervous system, to identify the normal microbiota present in the nervous system, to familiarize the viral diseases and its different type, to determine the fungal diseases, its symptoms and treatment, to distinguish the parasitic diseases, its symptoms, geographic occurrence, parasites, and mode of transmission, and lastly, to break down the bacterial diseases that can be found in the nervous system. So for the structure and function of the nervous system, it will be going to discuss by Yudirami Kakinuma in yours truly.
Good day everyone, I am Yuderami C. Kakinuma and I will discuss all about the structure of the nervous system. Nervous system has the following characteristics. First, it has a complex structure, means the evolution of organisms and species is through interconnectivity and the different factors emerge and evolve. It is also made up of a lot of organs that all seem the same and can only be distinguished using equipment like a microscope. And nervous system is also connected primarily with brain and spinal cord. The two major regions of the nervous system is the central nervous system and the peripheral nervous system. First is the CNS, or known as the central nervous system. It is composed of spinal cord and brain. So the nervous system, it controls most functions of the body and mind. And it consists two parts, which is the brain and the spinal cord. The brain is found within the skull's cranial cavity, and this is the center of our thoughts, while the spinal cord is found within the vertebral column's vertebral cavity. The second major regions of the nervous system is the peripheral nervous system. Is everything else, it's called the peripheral since it is located outside of the brain and spinal cord. Following examples of the PNS are the spinal nerves and the cranial nerves. The nervous tissue, both the CNS and the PNS contain this substance. The two basic types of cells, which are known as glial cell and the neuron. Glial cell is one of many types of cell that make up the tissue framework to facilitate the neurons and their actions. So the glial cell, these are non-neuronal cells in the central nervous system and peripheral nervous system that do not produce electrical impulses, but they maintain the homeostasis and provide support and protection for neurons. Second basic type of cells is known as neuron. Neuron, in terms of the nervous system's communication function, neuron is more functionally significant of the two. And neurons are cell and therefore contain soma or cell body. So the neurons are specialized to transmit information throughout the body. The two important process of neuron is known as the axon and dendrite. Axon, these are the fiber that links a neuron to its target, is known as the axon. So this axon carries those nerve impulses away from the cell body and it connects it with other neurons or with muscle or gland cells. And the dendrite is the majority of input from other neurons is received by dendrites. So this is designed to receive communications from other cells. So this is the figure of dendrite. And this one is the axon. Axon, or known as cell bodies, contains two regions within nervous system structure. This is known as gray matter and the white matter. The gray matters, the areas with a large number of cell bodies and dendrites. And gray matter is not really gray. Because of the blood presence, it can appear pinkish or even somewhat brown, regardless of how long the tissue has been stored. While the white matter, it is numerous axons regions, and white matter is white because axons are insulated by a lipid-rich substance called myelin. So myelin is the responsible for white color in the white matter, and it also protects some nerve fibers from injuries. So these are the important terms to know. First is the nucleus. So the nucleus is a cluster of neurons, cell bodies in the central nervous system. So the term nucleus has several diverse meanings in anatomy and physiology as shown in this figure. In the category A, the nucleus of an atom. In the category B, it is shown the nucleus of a cell, and in the category C, it's shown the nucleus in the brain. And the ganglion, a ganglion is a collection of neuron cell bodies found in the peripheral nervous system. Other terms are tract and nerve. The tract is a collection of axons or fibers found in the CNS, or in the central nervous system, and in the nerve, it is a collection of axons or fibers found in the PNS. So in this figure, it shows the gray matter, or the group of neuron cell bodies, and the white matter, or the group of bundle of axons. So in the CNS, the group of neuron cell bodies in the CNS is nucleus, known as nucleus, while in the PNS, it is known as ganglion. In the white matter, in the central nervous system, it is known as tract, while in the PNS, it is known as nerve.
So for the function of the nervous system, so there are two ways to consider how the nervous system is divided functionally. So first is the basic function of the nervous system, which are the sensation, integration, and response. It's also the one who controls our body. So again, the basic functions are sensation, response, and integration. So for the sensation, since sensation means the receiving information about the environment to gain input about what is happening outside the body. It is also the the sensory function of the nervous system register the presence of a change from homeostasis or particular event in the environment known as stimulus. So when we say sensation, it's all about the big five or our senses, the sense of taste, smell, touch, sight, and hearing. So these five are all senses that receive stimuli from the outside world. Next is for the response. So the nervous system produces a response on the basis of the stimuli perceived by the sensory structures. So an obvious response would be the movement of our muscles, such as withdrawing a hand, for example, from a hot stove. And our nervous system can cause the contraction of all three types of muscle tissue. For example, our skeletal muscle contracts to move the skeleton. Our cardiac muscle is influenced as heart rate increases during exercise, and our smooth muscle contracts as digestive system moves food along the digestive tract. So the responses can be divided into those that are voluntary or conscious. For example, contraction of our skeletal muscle, and involuntary, or the contraction of smooth muscle, regulation of cardiac muscle, and activation of glands. And for the integration, the stimuli are received by sensory structure are communicated to the nervous system where that information is processed. So this is called integration. So when we say integration, our body processes information and makes a decision about what should be done. So again, when we say the three basic functions of our nervous system are sensation, integration, and response. So when you say sensation, it gathers information. When you say response, coordinated action appropriate to the environment, and lastly, the integration, it processes information by the use of multiple sources of information from the environment. Next, our nervous system also the one who controls our body. So our nervous system can be divided into two parts, mostly on the basis of functional difference based on its responses. So first, the somatic nervous system. So it is responsible for conscious perception and voluntary motor response. So when we say voluntary responses, that means it is the contraction of our skeletal muscle. And next, the autonomic nervous system. So it is responsible for involuntary control of the body, usually for the sake of homeostasis. So the autonomic nervous system is the one who controls our smooth and cardiac muscles in our glands. So we are unconscious of its movement and it control our body involuntarily. So that's all for structure and function of our nervous system.
Normal microbiota of the nervous system. The defenses of the nervous system includes the bone structures, blood-brain barrier, microbial cells, and the macrophages. Since the blood-brain barrier excludes most microbes, there is no normal microbiota in the nervous system. It is still believed that there is no normal biota in either the CNS or PNS. The presence of microbes of any kind in these tissues indicates a divergence from the normal state. Herpes viruses exist in the neurodeal system in a dormant form, but they are not considered typical flora. At the moment, the Human Microbiome Project is not sampling this system.
So next is the bacterial disease of the nervous system. So our nervous system is highly integrated system and it may be infected by a wide variety of bacteria. Thus, in this part, we'll be going to discuss the host responses to this infection. So first is the bacterial meningitis. So when we say meningitis, it is the infection of the membrane covering the brain in the spinal cord. So it takes place when these bacteria get in our bloodstream and travel to our brain and spinal cord to start the infection. So it may be caused by Haemophilus influenza, Streptococcus pneumonia, Neisseria meningitis. So the initial symptoms are fever, headache, and stuffed neck, followed by dyspnea and vomiting. So it may progress to convulsion and coma. And for the diagnosis, it can be diagnosed through the gram-stain and latex agglutination of CSF and can be treated by cephalosporin and vancomycin. So next is the Haemophilus influenza meningitis. That is the major cause of the bacterial meningitis. So Haemophilus influenza meningitis happen in our upper respiratory infection. So it usually spread from the lungs and airways to blood, then to our brain area. So it's caused by Haemophilus influenza type B bacteria. It occurs mostly in children 6 months to 4 years. It can be diagnosed through gram-negative aerobic bacteria and normal throat bacteria. For its mortality rate, it is 6%, and it can be treated through capsule antigen B. In this meningitis can be prevented by HIV vaccine. Next is the Neisseria meningitis. It's also the major cause of the meningitis. So it's also called as meningococcal meningitis. So it is spread through close contact with infected people. So through droplets in the air from a sneeze or close conversation, it can be infected and may cause an infection. So it caused by N meningitis for the gram-negative anaerobic capsule. For its initial symptoms, the initial symptoms are throat infection and rashes. It can be prevented through vaccination by BCYW135 capsule. And next is the Streptococcus pneumoniae meningitis. So it is spread by respiratory fluids from the infected person when they cough or sneeze. So it also called as pneumococcal meningitis. So it is caused by S. pneumonia or gram-positive Staphylococcus. It is most common in children 1 month to 4 years old. Its mortality rate are 30% in children and 80% in elderly, and can be prevented through vaccination. So next is the listeriosis. So it is caused by Listeria monocytogenes, usually foodborne. It can be transmitted to fetus, and it is reproduced in phagocytes. So listeriosis. So people usually become ill with listeriosis after eating contaminated food. So these are the food that contain listeria, as unpasteurized or raw milk and dairy products, soft cheese made with unpasteurized milk, raw fruits and vegetables, ready-to-eat meats and hot dogs, refrigerated meat spreads, and refrigerated smoke on seafood. So those are the foods that contain listeria. So next is the tetanus or lactose. So it is a bacterial disease that affects our nervous system. So it is contracted through cuts or wounds, and this will serve as the entryway of the tetanus bacteria. So it is commonly found in soil, dust, and manure. It is caused by Clostridium tetani or gram-positive endospore-forming obligate inner room. So it grows in deep wound, and it can be prevented through vaccination with tetanus toxoid and booster. It can be treated through tetanus immune globulin. So next is the botulism. So it is caused by Clostridium botulinum or gram-positive endospore-forming obligate inner room. So it is a rare but a serious illness caused by toxin that attacks our body's nerves and causes difficulty in breathing, muscle paralysis, and even death. So for the prevention, we must have a proper canning and nitrites treatment, supportive care, and antitoxin. So there are three types of botulism. So first is the infant botulism. So it can happen if the spores of the bacteria get into infants and teens. So the spores grow and produce the toxin which causes illness. So next is the wound botulism. If the It can happen if the spores of the bacteria get into a wound and make a toxin. So people who inject drugs have a greater chance of getting wound botulism. So wound botulism has also occurred in people after a traumatic injury, such as a motorcycle accident or surgery. And also it can be get through a foodborne, so it can happen by eating foods that have been contaminated with botulinum toxins. So the common sources of foodborne botulism are homemade foods that have been improperly canned, preserved, or fermented. So true and common store both foods also can be contaminated with botulinum toxin. So that's more botulism. So next is for leprosy. It's also called as Hansen disease. So this disease mainly affect the skin, the peripheral needs, mucosal surfaces of the upper respiratory tract, and the eyes. So it occur at all ages, ranging from early infancy to very old age. So it caused by Mycobacterium leprae. The symptoms are runny nose, dry scalp, skin lesions, and etc. So it grows in our peripheral nerves and skin cells. So it types also there are two types of leprosy: the tuberculoid neural form and the lepromatous progressive form. So when we say tuberculoid form, so so a person with this type of infection only exhibit a few lesions, so that the disease is mild and only mildly contagious. When we say lepromatous or progressive form, this type also affects the skin, nerves, and other organs. So there are widespread lesions, including large lumps and bumps, and this form of disease is more contagious. So that's all for the bacterial disease of the nervous system.
Viral diseases. Viral diseases of the nervous system can be caused by a variety of viruses and prions. The infections are more prevalent than the bacterial infections, but these illnesses are usually milder than bacterial infections and can resolve on their own. Viral diseases of the nervous system include the rabies, encephalitis, and the poliomyelitis, commonly known as the polio. Rabies. Rabies has the mortality rate approaching 200%. The agent is an RNA virus of the Rhabdoviridae. This virus, which is spread by warm-blooded animals, attacks the brain, causing neurological discomfort and muscle paralysis. When the virus has been transferred in a bite, an activated virus vaccination may be rendered. Encephalitis is a type of brain inflammation caused by any number of RNA-containing viruses. Eastern equine encephalitis, Western equine encephalitis, and Venezuelan eastern horse encephalitis are some of the examples of the encephalitis. The symptoms of this encephalitis are fever and severe headaches, and the fatalities are prevalent. It is a rare disease caused by mosquito bites, which is the Eastern equine encephalitis. The Eastern equine encephalitis does not spread through person to person but through organ donation from an infected donor. Most people who become infected with this virus show either no or mild symptoms, like the meningitis, swelling of the membranes that surround the brain and spinal cord, and begin with the sudden onset of fever, chills, headache, and vomiting. The illness may then progress into disorientation, seizures, and coma. Approximately a third of patients who develop encephalitis due to Eastern equine encephalitis may die, and many of those who survive have mild to severe brain damage. Western equine encephalitis is a viral illness that is transmitted to people and horses through a bite of an infected mosquito. This virus is an alpha virus and closely related to Eastern equine encephalitis and Venezuelan equine encephalitis. The symptoms of this show suddenly within 1 to 2 weeks of being bitten by an infected mosquito. Only small percentage of people, especially infants and elderly persons, may develop encephalitis. The illness may progress to disorientation, irritability, seizures, and coma. The Venezuelan Eastern equine encephalitis is an acute mosquito-transmitted disease characterized by fever chills, headache, nausea, vomiting, lumbosacral pain, and myalgia. The disease was first recognized as a unique mosquito-borne virus in horses in Venezuela in 1938. Severe cases may progress to encephalitis. The next viral diseases is the poliomyelitis, or commonly known as the polio. It is a disease caused by an RNA virus belonging to the Picornaviridae family. It is transmitted through contaminated food and water that can cause intestinal distress. It can lead to meningitis or paralysis if it reaches the spinal cord.
Fungal disease. A fungal disease is commonly known as the mycosis, is a fungus caused by skin illness. It can be found in the soil, on plants, on household surfaces, and even on your skin. Sometimes it causes skin problems such as rashes or pimples. These are the symptoms of having a fungal disease or a fungal infection. It might cause irritation, scaly skin, redness, itching, swelling, and blisters. Types of fungal disease: athlete's foot, jock itch, ringworm, and NGS infection. The athlete's foot is only weakly contagious. It is spread by direct touch with the infection as well as the skin particles left in towels, shoes, or floors. It rarely caused by a non-dermatophytes like yeast. Jock itch is one also of the cause of fungal infection or fungal disease. It is a form of ringworm that likes to live in warm, moist places on your body. It's also called the tinea cruris. People who sweat a lot, who are overweight, or have a skin condition called eczema are more likely to get it. One of the symptoms of jock itch is itching and burning, a red scaly circular rash with raised edges, cracking, flaking, or peeling skin. Next is the ringworm. Ringworm is named by the fact that it can cause a circular rash shaped like a ring that is usually red and itchy. Lastly, the yeast infection. Inflammation, discharge, and extreme itching of the vagina and vulva, the tissue at the vagina opening caused by a fungal infection or a fungal disease. Treatment for fungal disease or fungal infection. The antifungal medicines are used to treat fungal infection, which mostly commonly affect your skin, hair, and nails. These are creams, gel ointment or spray, a capsule, tablet, or a liquid, an injection, a pessary, a small and soft tablet you put inside the vagina. There are things you need to consider when using an antifungal medicine. Any existing condition or allergies that may affect your treatment for fungal infection, the possible side effects of antifungal medicine, whether the antifungal medicine may interact with other medicines you may already be taking, whether your antifungal medicine is suitable to take during pregnancy or while breastfeeding. Many are not suitable. These are the common names for antifungal medicine. It includes the clotrimazole, iconazole, miconazole, terbinafine, fluconazole, ketoconazole, nystatin, and lastly the amphotericin.
Parasitic disease. Parasitic disease is also known as parasitosis, is an infectious disease caused or transmitted by a parasite. And many parasites do not cause diseases as it may eventually lead to death of both organism and host. And parasite infecting human beings are called as human parasites. Protozoal infections of central nervous system includes the following: the African trypanosomiasis, amoebic abscesses, PAM or the primary amoebic meningoencephalitis, and toxoplasmosis. First disease is known as the African trypanosomiasis. This disease affects the entire body. Flagellated protozoa cause sickness in humans in which a type of bacteria that live in the bloodstream called the hemoflagellates. So the African trypanosomiasis, this also known as sleeping sickness. It is caused by microscopic parasite of the species known as Trypanosoma brucei, and it is transmitted by the tsetse fly or known as Glycina species, which is found only in the area of Africa. And the bacteria that live in the bloodstream, which is known as hemoflagellates, this is commonly transmitted through blood sucking. And these are the early stages or symptoms of African trypanosomiasis. Following are the painful chancre, particularly at the site of a tsetse fly bite, fever, a extreme headache, insomnia, lymphadenitis, anemia, and so on. Patient care. So they use particular standard precautions for those hospitalized patients. And the geographic occurrence of this disease is transmitted by the tsetse fly or known as genus Glycina. And tsetse fever is exclusively seen in tropical Africa where have been discovered. And the pathogens found in this disease are in which the African trypanosomiasis is caused by two subspecies of Trypanosoma brucei, and the receiver and mode of transmission are the following. First, the main or primary receiver are wild animals and domestic cattle. Also, when tsetse flies swallow blood containing trypanosomes, they get infected. And when mature trypanosomes infect people, they cause this kind of infection. Second disease is known as the amoebic abscesses. So this, often known as amoebic dysentery, is a protozoal illness that can be asymptomatic, moderate, or severe. Amoebic abscesses is caused by Entamoeba histolytica, and this parasite causes amoebiasis, an intestinal infection that is also called as amoebic dysentery. So after an infection has occurred, the parasite may be carried by the bloodstream from the intestines to the liver. And these are the following early stages or symptoms, which are dysentery, fever, chills, bloody or mucodiarrhea or constipation, and colitis. The geographic occurrence of this disease is reported worldwide. Parasite found is that amoebiasis is caused by Entamoeba histolytica, And there are two stages, the C stage, which is the dormant and infective stage, and the motile, which is metabolically active, reproducing trophozoite stage. And the receiver and mode of transmission of this disease are the following. So by ingesting feces, contaminated food, or cyst-infested water, also cysts from feces to food are transported by flies, also via infected food handlers, fecally contaminated hands, and through means of oral and anal sexual contacts, and also by many sex partners participating in anal intercourse. Third disease is known as the primary amoebic meningoencephalitis, or the PAM. This is an amoebic infection that causes inflammation of the meninges and brain. So this is a rare and severe disease caused by a single-celled amoeba called Naegleria fowleri. It causes inflammation and destruction of the brain and the linings of the brain, and it is usually fatal. And the early stages symptoms of this disease are the following, which are sore throat, severe frontal headache, hallucinations, nausea, vomiting, and stiff neck. This is also reported worldwide, and the parasite found is that the primary amoebic meningoencephalitis is caused by an amoeboflagellate named N. fowleri, and the receiver and mode of transmission of this disease are following. By receiver are mainly composed of water and soil, and also amoeba contaminated water such as ponds, lakes, old swimming holes, hot tube, thermal springs, spas, and public swimming pools. Lastly, the toxoplasmosis is a spore zone infection that affects the entire body. Immunocompetent individuals can be asymptomatic or appear infected mononuclear cyst. In immunocompromised people, significant illness, even death, can occur. So the toxoplasmosis is a type of disease that results from infection with the Toxoplasma gondii parasite. So this is one of the world's most common parasites. So infection usually occurs by eating undercooked contaminated meat, which the exposure from infected cat feces, or also from the mother to child transmission during pregnancy. Toxoplasmosis also occurs worldwide, and the parasite found in the toxoplasmosis is caused by the intracellular sporozoan Toxoplasma gondii, and the receiver and mode of transmission are the following. By cats and other felines are commonly infected after eating infected rodents or birds. Also, humans are commonly infected by eating undercooked or raw that contains the parasite cyst phase, or by injecting oocytes deposited in the feces of infected cats. So this is the end of the report. So thank you for listening.